This one got way out of hand. Abby Phillips was forced to cut to a break when Ana Navarro and Shermichael Singleton started butting heads over the deportation of illegal immigrants, and I think Scott Jennings came in a voice of calm reasoning here on the panel that just kept evolving. Watch this for yourself and you'll see what I'm saying.
54% of Americans want Mr.
November
Abrego
polling
Garcia
showed Donald
back.
Trump won the
That's
election.
CNN polling.
November
public
polling,
is shifting.
We are a sovereign nation, and you cannot just come into our country illegally whenever the heck you want, because we can't do it to any other country on the face of this earth.
Is a legal right.
If you come in illegally, you have to leave. Americans are tired of that. We do not have unlimited resources.
You know who was here illegally with a deportation order? Marco Rubio's grandfather.
All right,
We're not talking about Marco Rubio.
Oh, now we're not? Now that's not relevant?
It's not relevant.
No, I'm talking about Marco
Rubio
Rubio because Marco Rubio used to be an advocate for TPS for Venezuelans, and Marco Rubio used to be an advocate for Nicaraguans and Cubans. No, I know you're not. If you come into this country illegally, you are going home. Simple as that. We do not have unlimited resources.
I think a lot of Americans
to take care of other people.
There's a hell of a lot of people,
guys.
other than the black people who were brought here as slaves, who came to this country illegally.
They're not the same as black people who were brought here against our will.
That's exactly what I just said. I said there is a lot of people
There's a big difference. There is a big difference.
That's exactly what I just said.
There's a big difference.
That's exactly what I just said, Shermichael. Look and act indignant. That's exactly what I just said.
Yes, it is.
Let me just heard me say that's other than the black
Anna and Shermichael, please.
There are a lot of people from many
I think you actually misheard what she. I think you misheard what she said.
No, he purposely misheard.
She said.
I purposely
yes, she did.
So now you're in my brain.
Shermichael, listen to me for just a second.
Is that where we're going?
You think I would say I who have advocated for black people my entire life would say something like that?
Anna,
because you've advocated for black people, great. Congratulations. Last time I checked, I'm black. You're not.
Okay, Shermichael.
That's right. I'm Latino, and my people are being racially profiled.
It is.
And
do I have to remind you the history of my people?
Shermichael,
do I want to go there?
No, I don't.
Okay, we're going to go to break. Raul, we're going to go to break.
I cannot believe that it was Shermichael's assertion of the basic legal fact that set off Ana Navarro like this, and honestly, I completely understand that reaction to someone bringing up the history of slavery from 300 years ago and using that as a pawn to justify illegal immigration. By the way, this is a great time to subscribe and hit the notification bell because we've got some exposés coming up that you can't miss. Also, what kind of a distraction is it to bring up Marco Rubio's grandfather's immigration history from a century ago to somehow prove a point for mass illegal migration? Now, the sad part for Ana Navarro is that we can actually dig up past statements of her to contrast just how dangerously out of touch she really is. Because back in the first Trump presidency, we saw something along similar lines when Donald Trump called known MS-13 gang members as animals, and this is when MS-13 wasn't even as well known as the designated terror organization that it is today. Ana Navarro was still conflating that with the broad topic of legal migration, saying that the president's words were dehumanizing immigrants, comparing him to the German dictator and slave owners. The only difference is she's still speaking the same way like a broken record when nearly everyone in this country has woken up to the absolute disaster and human tragedy that the southern border has been for the last 4 years.
They have gone down because of the lack of due process, because of the cruelty, because of the 2-year-old, the 4-year-old with cancer, U.S. citizen that was deported, because of the 20-year-old U.S. citizen young man in Florida detained for 30 hours, because of the U.S. citizen's home in Oklahoma that was broken into by ICE and raided. Those are the things that America is hearing about, and I think it repulses us. It repulses us, and it worries us to see lack of due process, cruelty, to see, and defiance of judicial order.
Now, the mere words she's using here tell you that she has no idea what she's even talking about. No U.S. citizen can just be deported to another country, and to me, the entire cause of the Venezuelan illegal immigrant mother deported who chose to take her children with her is just a grim example of how millions of illegal migrant cases will only become more and more complicated over time as they marry, have children, and have jobs. It's a mess that no one will be able to untangle, which is exactly why even the Trump administration is struggling with the optics of the deportation drive. How do millions of people illegally cross over in just the span of 4 years, leaving the next administration the task of processing and deporting them with just a few hundred immigration judges? It's an impossible task, but that doesn't mean you give up the entire principle that Shermichael Singleton is asserting, that if you break the law and come into this country illegally, you should be deported and apply through the law. That's fair. It's crazy that you cannot get most Democrat pundits to even agree to this fundamental principle these days?
Number one, the children that you mentioned were not deported. They went with their mothers. Their mothers requested that the children come with them. So their mothers were deported because they were illegal aliens.
They didn't get through the process.
And so
to go through
they went.
Process.
So there's really two choices here: split the family or keep the family together. The U.S. government's policy here was to let the mothers decide. The mothers decided to take the children. That's number one. On the Garcia case, effectively what you all are arguing for, passionately, and what Democrats are passionately arguing for, is for the President of the United States to re-import a dangerous member of a transnational terrorist organization who has clear affiliations with a gang that commits heinous atrocities. That is not what he was elected to do. And whether you bring him back here or not, I'm just going to explain to you the politics of this through telling you what the Speaker of the House, Hakeem Jeffries, did today, which is that he told his members, please, for the love of God, stop going to El Salvador and dying on this hill. The politics of this could not be worse for the left and worse for Democrats because the president knows he was elected to protect us from MS-13, and that is what they are doing.
And that's why it's really ironic when Democrats point to different polls suggesting Americans are wary about the deportation drive, as if it means anything at all in favor of the Democrat policy on immigration. Remember, the whole case as it regards Abrego Garcia hasn't exactly been the most stellar optics for the Democrats either, especially when we saw two mothers, Patty Moore and Tammy Nobles from Maryland, criticizing Senator Van Hollen for not saying a word about their daughters who lost their lives at the hands of MS-13 gang violence in their state. And you don't even have to take anyone's word for it, because if you go back to when the Prince George County Police Department initially arrested Garcia, they checked the gang member box on their police profile records. These are uncomfortable facts that you're rarely ever finding on a panel like this, and even Shermichael Singleton got frustrated when he wasn't allowed proper time to present these truths to the CNN audience.
It's a question of due process. Whatever we feel about Mr. Abrego Garcia, it's honestly irrelevant.
All
it's
these
a question for the immigration judge.
On Mr. Garcia, we keep saying that there's no evidence that this guy belonged to a gang.
No evidence in court filings.
That's not true.
No, that is true.
That is true.
Shermichael, that is true.
No.
Hold on.
We always have to play this game of interrupting people when they're talking.
But you're saying...
What is the point of me being on the show if I can never finish my freaking point?
Okay.
This is getting really annoying, Abby.
Hold on.
Everyone else has made their statements. I have yet to say anything.
Hold on a second, okay?
I mean, Jesus.
Hold on a second.
Why are you so angry?
Because I want to say something, and I have a point of view to make here as well.
Hang on just one second. Shermichael, let me ask you a question. The question is, has the government presented evidence in court that Abrego Garcia is a member of MS-13?
And my response...
And the answer is no, that has not happened in court. But it doesn't mean that they have not made those claims publicly. It doesn't mean that those claims are not in police reports.
In 2019...
It doesn't mean that they're not in police reports. They're just not statements that were made in a court case.
In 2019, the immigration judge at the time believed the Prince George's County gang unit and the evidence that they presented before that judge at the time that Mr. Garcia did indeed belong to a gang. This is not my opinion. People can Google this crap. They can Google this. CBS reported on this. If a judge believed it in 2019, is it now all of a sudden not true?
The judge granted him a withholding of removal.
No, I acknowledge that fact.
Which is a different issue. Hold on.
But the point remains that a judge found the evidence to be credible that Mr. Garcia did indeed belong to a gang. So now all of a sudden we're just not going to believe judges?
In all of this noise, all you really have to take away is the fundamental fact that a nation's immigration laws need to be respected by anyone that wants to enter it. If we can't agree to that across the political divide, we have a lot more work to do before the debates even begin. But let me know in the comments what you thought about this, because it seems like that's the spot where our political conversation is still stuck around the immigration debate.